So welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris meet separately with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. The 2024 Olympic Games open in Paris on Friday, and African athletes are expected to perform exceptionally well. And in our entertainment report, Ethiopian singer and producer Jemberu Demeke presents a blend of Amharic raps and trap music. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. In an effort to bring an end to the Israel-Hamas war, U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris met separately with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House on Thursday. VOA White House correspondent Anita Powell has the details.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday brought Israel's leader into the calm eye of America's political storm as the two tried to hash out a lasting peace to silence the suffering in Gaza. Biden said little.
Well, welcome back, Mr. Prime Minister. We got a lot to talk about. I think we should get to it.
But Vice President Kamala Harris took a firm tone after her own meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hours later, centering on the horror experienced by the people of Gaza. She urged Israel to take the deal on the table to end the fighting and free the hostages.
I also expressed with the Prime Minister my serious concern about the scale of human suffering in Gaza, including the death of far too many innocent civilians. And I made clear my serious concern about the dire humanitarian situation there, with over 2 million people facing high levels of food insecurity, and 500,000 people facing catastrophic levels of acute food insecurity. What has happened in Gaza over the past 9 months is devastating.
Her words were amplified by protesters outside the White House on Thursday, who object to the Israeli military's conduct in Gaza and want Biden to dial back his support. The White House said the meeting with Biden was productive, but didn't cite any breakthroughs.
This was a good discussion with the Prime Minister and his team. The President had a chance to lay out his concerns about where we are on the ceasefire deal and getting us to conclusion on that, as well as to talk about a range of other issues. Iran's destabilizing activities, the tensions at the blue line up with Lebanon, the need for more humanitarian assistance getting to the people of Gaza. There was a lot on the agenda.
On Friday, Netanyahu meets with Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. This trio of talks is obviously a delicate political balancing act for the Israeli leader. But some pro-Israeli analysts argue that Netanyahu's defiance of Washington has garnered results.
There's more likelihood of a ceasefire now than there was a couple of months ago before Israel went into Rafah. Vice President Harris told them they shouldn't go in or there'll be consequences. Biden didn't want them to go in. It turned out actually to be a pretty successful mission. They haven't finished Rafah, but they were able to quickly move a lot of the Palestinian civilians into other areas so the Israeli military could fight Hamas.
Netanyahu's detractors both outside and inside Congress disagree. And as they like to remind the future president, whoever he or she will be, they have a say too. Anita Powell, VOA News, Washington.
Former U.S. President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama endorsing Kamala Harris in her White House bid, giving the vice president the crucial backing of the nation's two most popular Democrats. Harris, the Democratic Party's presumptive nominee, faces off against the Republican former President Donald Trump. VOA correspondent Scott Stearns looks at how Trump's campaign is recalibrating its approach to take on the vice president.
Republicans at last week's national convention saw the mounting pressure on President Joe Biden to step down as his party's presumptive candidate. So when he did, they were ready.
If you ever wondered how Joe Biden could get the border so screwed up, remember, he had help.
With this ad pivoting from Biden to Vice President Kamala Harris and blaming her for a surge of illegal immigration.
I've been working on this issue for a very long time,
That's the truth about Kamala Harris. She's dangerously liberal on illegal immigration.
In her first campaign event as the Democrats' likely presidential candidate, Harris was ready with a counterattack, reminding voters of her work as a courtroom prosecutor and attorney general.
And in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
Harris resets a race that former President Donald Trump was leading, says Brookings Institution governmental studies expert Darrell West.
She'll be very competitive in those crucial Midwestern states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And I think she also will put some of those other swing states that have started to slip away, places like Arizona, back in very strong contention for Democrats.
For Republican nominee Trump, a new political challenger means a new derisive nickname.
I call her Laughing Kamala. You ever watch her laugh? She's crazy. You know, you can tell a lot by her laugh. No, she's crazy. She's nuts.
It's a campaign confident in beating any Democrat, says Hofstra University's Mina Bose.
Clearly, former President Trump and his campaign staff thought that President Biden was a beatable candidate. They seem to have the same views of Vice President Harris.
The change will mean some adjustments for Republicans, says West.
They're just going to have to recast the whole thrust of their campaign, which was saying Joe Biden was too old, he couldn't do the job, his family was corrupt. All that disappears now. But I'm sure they will quickly go on the attack. They will note that she came out of the state of California, which is more liberal than the rest of the country.
Trump running mate J.D. Vance has taken up that attack, blaming Vice President Harris for Biden's poor performance.
Our country has been saddled for 3.5 years with a president who cannot do the job. And that is all because Kamala Harris and the rest of the Democrats lied about his ability to be our president.
Harris says voters have a clear choice between her vision and Trump's.
Do we want to live in a country of freedom, compassion, and rule of law, or a country of chaos, fear, and hate? And here's the beauty of this moment. We each have the power to answer that question. The power is with the people.
Initial political polling since Biden's withdrawal shows Harris narrowing her party's gap with Trump. Scott Stearns, VOA News.
As the United States seeks to counter growing foreign influence in Africa, it is utilizing a unique blend of military strength and distribution and traditional diplomacy. VOA's Anthony Labruto spoke to U.S. Congressman Michael McCaul, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, who details plans on how the U.S. is rethinking its strategic initiatives from a legislative perspective.
I think it's problematic. The Sahel has always been, fragile, but it's particularly fragile today, and that's primarily Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, where, you saw with the coup in Niger, our military are pulling out altogether. I'm very worried about it. It's not only the Wagner and these Islamists. It's a really dangerous combination. They don't work together. They don't like each other, but they are occupying the space. U.S. AFRICOM, the General Langley warned that the loss of U.S. bases in the Sahel will, quote, degrade our ability to do active watching and warning, including for the homeland defense. We're seeing a very dangerous impact coming out of Afghanistan right now with all the ISIS. We always have to be mindful of that any of these terror operations can go operational, external operations, if that's where the direction they want to go. And so that's where the military comes in. We have CT operations. That's where AFRICOM, but they're overstretched and overburdened. But I mean that's their role in coordinating with state and USAID is to provide that security piece. So their CT operations are very important, but when you have Niger kicking us out, there's nothing we can do. we can't operate within country. The country doesn't want us there. And, they kicked the French out of Mali and the Sahel region, so they're gone. They have this anti-colonialism attitude that goes back to the French, and I understand that. And they probably look at us in some respects. We want them to look at us as a liberator, not an occupier.
That was U.S. Congressman Michael McCaul, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, speaking to VOA's Anthony Labruto. Ivory Coast security forces battered hundreds of residents being expelled from an Abidjan district on Thursday to make way for a new road. Several people were hurt in the disturbances that lasted several hours. VOA's Philip Alexiou has this report.
Deputy Director of Public Security Siaka Dosso said there were no injured in the operation that's needed for a 1-kilometer road to connect a highway to a bridge. But an AFP journalist saw hundreds of Ajami residents hurl stones at security forces who fired tear gas in response. At least one mechanical digger was set ablaze. Dozens of homes were destroyed, leaving residents to dig for their belongings. Ajami village resident Rosina Du.
They broke into the courtyard, smashed the gates and doors. They took all my jewelry, my clothes, everything. My child's cell phone, the computer, it's all gone. I don't know if they came to destroy or to rob us. So that's it. We're in desolation. It's not okay. It's not okay.
A special 300-strong urban disorder force was established in Abidjan Monday. Another village resident, Madame Abragoa, says they came to demolish the houses.
They went into the houses, they even broke the doors, they went in, they searched the houses, they stole things, they ransacked. We don't know who did it. Is that good? Ajame village, it's an Ibri village that has lived in Abidjan for generations. We don't even know where we were, and then this village was created. Now, why do they want to take away Ajame? Now they've come to destroy it. Ask them, where are we going to go? Where are we going to sleep? That's all we ask. Where are we going to sleep? We have to sleep in the streets? There are women who have given birth and are inside with newborn babies. You don't do that to a human being.
Ajami is one of many traditional villages in the city of 6 million people where evictions have increased since February in poorer districts of the city, especially those prone to flooding. At least 24 people died in 10 days in floods earlier this year. The Abidjan governor, Ibrahima Cissé Bakongo, said at the launch that President Alassane Ouattara, quote, has instructed us to put the emphasis on the fight against urban disorder, the fight against unhealthy conditions, and the accelerated improvement of living and working conditions for people. Philip Alexiou, VOA News.
The 2024 Olympic Games officially got underway today, and we're keeping our eyes on African athletes. VOA's Mike Hovey joins us now with more. Hello, Mike.
That's right, Esther. African sports commentators say they're expecting elite performances and medals from athletes who are representing the continent at the 2024 Olympic Games.
Over 10,000 athletes, including those from Africa's 54 countries, are scheduled to participate in the official opening of the 2024 Paris Olympics. A statement by the American network, NBC News, the event's official international broadcaster, says this year's competition will be historic because the opening ceremony will not take place in a stadium. Instead, athletes will arrive via boat and cruise down the Seine River, passing by historic Paris landmarks, including the Notre Dame de Paris Cathedral. Pundits and betting outlets favor nations like the United States and Jamaica, who have dominated several fields. However, Africa's representatives say they differ. Among them is Andre Matias, a two-time Angolan Olympic rower.
Africa has won, Olympic medals and will continue to win.
Matias says it's important that Africa put up high-ranking performances that will help the continent draw more attention and resources to boost sport on the continent.
I know the reality back home, right? It's hard. Like, we have equipment failures, to get, if there's like a hole in the carbon, it's very hard to repair. If we need like special parts, proprietary parts, it takes months. So there's big challenges.
Despite the challenges African athletes face with poor training infrastructure and limited resources, the continent still produces medal-winning athletes, including South African swimmer Chad le Clos, who has 1 gold and 3 silver. Botswana's Letsile Tebogo and Kenya's Ferdinand Omanyala are also listed among athletes who could win medals in the 100-meter and 200-meter races against American Noah Lyles, the favorite to win gold in both events. Makanaka Ishe Charamba, a Zimbabwean runner who will compete in Paris, says Africa was historically known for its dominance in long-distance running, but expressed confidence that the continent's runners will also win medals in the 100-meter and 200-meter races.
Back then, people used to just know Africa for distance races because we had countries like Uganda, countries like Kenya. Now we have other countries on the southern side like Zimbabwe, South Africa, Botswana. Then we also look at countries like Nigeria and Uganda producing sprinters. So I'll probably say Africa, we're on the rise, and in a few, we will probably have a chance of getting a couple medals as a continent.
The Olympics will feature a range of events, including track and field, basketball, rugby, and football. In the Rugby Sevens Olympics that started earlier this week, some African teams already crashed out, while others advanced to the quarterfinals. Kenya, who lost to Argentina, Australia, and Samoa, saw themselves exiting the tournament on Thursday, while South Africa's Blitzbokke advanced to the next stage after defeating Japan and New Zealand. The Football Olympics also started before the official opening. Morocco opened their campaign with a 2-1 victory over Argentina. In the Women's Olympics, Nigeria's Super Falcons lost 1-0 to Brazil, and Zambia lost 3-0 to the U.S. women's national team.
We'll keep you updated on the Olympics on voaafrica.com, our social media pages, X, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also tune into our weekly podcast, Chasing Gold Olympics 2024, which is available on our website and social media pages. Back to you, Esther.
Thanks, Mike, for that report. Before the opening ceremonies for the Olympics could get underway in Paris Friday, arson attacks scrambled France's high-speed rail network for tens of thousands of passengers. Officials are calling the incidents premeditated acts of sabotage. Meanwhile, amid tight security, the Olympic Games officially start Friday evening with a spectacular ceremony on the Seine River. Lisa Brandt has more from the French capital.
This is not the Paris that many tourists and Parisians are familiar with. Key sites temporarily inaccessible except for those with special passes. Roughly 15 million visitors and more than 10,000 athletes are expected for these games, but many Parisians have already left on holiday. Traditional tourists are staying away. Organizers hope these Olympics will be unforgettable. They've promised the most environmentally friendly games ever. Friday's Seine River ceremony, gathering athletes, political leaders, and global stars, will be the first ever outside a stadium.
I can tell you that at the very beginning, it seemed to be a crazy and not very serious idea. But we decided that it was the right moment to deliver this crazy idea and to make it real.
Of course, Paris is ready. To the contrary, we're extremely impatient to host the Games. We've been preparing for them for years.
There have been challenges along the way. The country has a caretaker government after inconclusive legislative elections. It wasn't certain whether the Seine River could host swimming events despite a $1.5 billion cleanup. But last week, Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo took the plunge. There have been fears of an uptick of COVID-19 that already hit the Tour de France and threats of strike action. Tens of thousands of security forces are patrolling the streets, skies, and river. Some incidents have already taken place. The conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine also shadow the Games, including this early soccer match. The French themselves have mixed feelings about these Olympics.
Certain people are more concerned about what's happening politically or in terms of their purchasing power and security. Others are enthusiastic, but in Paris, the majority are indifferent or exasperated by the constraints.
But not everyone.
I'm very proud to have the Games here. Paris authorities fought to host them for a long time.
Despite months of preparation, there's still one big unknown: the weather. Organizers are hoping it won't rain on the opening ceremony. Lisa Bryant, VOA News, Paris.
Still to come in our entertainment report will feature Ethiopian singer and producer Jemberu Demeke. Stay with us.
Amid the climate crisis, women in some African countries often find themselves left behind by their husbands who migrate far away for work because of the drought affecting their region for years. Now alone, these abandoned women say they struggle to feed their children, and some never see their husbands again. On the next edition of Our Voices, we'll take a closer look at climate widows on the continent and how they are combating and surviving the environmental crisis and the impacts on their lives. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Vunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in
In other news, search teams are still digging at the site of deadly mudslides in southern Ethiopia on Friday as the death toll climbed to 257, according to the United Nations Humanitarian Office. Local officials say the death toll could rise to as many as 500. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is expected to visit the area Friday. The fuel shortages are over in Malawi. A trainload of diesel fuel has arrived in the country for the first time in 21 years. Malawian authorities say the arrival marked the beginning of regular fuel transport to the country on a newly refurbished rail line from the Indian Ocean port of Nacala in Mozambique. Previously, Malawi had transported fuel by road. And for the first time in history, the International Olympic Committee says it has achieved full gender parity on the field of play at this year's Olympics. Female athletes who once made up only about 2% of Olympic competitors are now present in the same numbers as men. Kenya has sent about 20 female athletes to Paris, second only to South Africa, which has sent 24. In today's entertainment report, will feature Ethiopian singer and producer Jemberu Demeke, who is known for his innovative musical style, which he dubs tonic fusion. This unique genre is a blend of Amharic raps, trap music, and samples from various contemporary styles. Here's Jackson Vunganyi has more.
Jemberu was busy in studio putting final touches on his album before its release. He says that Esatuse is a reflection of the diverse influences that have shaped his sound and the creative vision for Ethiopia's evolving music industry.
My music, I make it, I like to make fusion. I call it tonic fusion. So I kind of, find different aspects of modern music that I like, and then I try to combine those. For example, I'm currently working on a track called Lela. And it's like this Jersey club beat mixed with some Ethiopian Amharic rapping with a little bit of trap and also a little bit of I would say sampling going on. So it's it's like different elements going in at once and creating this cohesive vibe. I'm in the zone what? Koi. Esatuse is my character that I've created, and it's like the album that I've created around that has its own meaning, its own voice, and its own, outlook, visuals, and it's part of this greater journey I call Salion, which is a bunch of characters that I have that I'm going to define and show to the audience. And I'm going to also use this to like, you know, say that we are not all people think we are. You know, we could redefine things and we can like push those limits and boundaries in music and in expression. So that's what this album is about. It's about beginning that journey.
Jemberu's journey into music began behind the scenes. As a producer, the self-described computer geek was fascinated by the technical aspects of music production. This background has heavily influenced his approach to creating music, where meticulous attention to detail and the deep understanding of sound engineering play crucial roles.
Hadn't I been a producer, I wouldn't actually start singing or rapping. So, you know, when I started producing, it was because, you know, I'm a computer geek, you know, kind of guy. So every time I'm on a computer, I want to check out the next new app or like what's popping. And, you know, I come across these applications. I come across this app called Fruity Loops or FL Studio. And, you know, I'm dabbling with some beats now, and I have a few beats on like my computer, and I don't know any like musicians, and I'm like, oh, what am I gonna do with these beats? And that's when I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just try. You know, let's try some bars. Let's try some rapping, and you know that led to me actually getting immersed and starting to make music for real.
Jemberu's new sonic experimentation represents the evolving landscape of Ethiopian music. By incorporating Amharic raps with the rhythmic and melodic elements of trap music, plus other contemporary genres, he creates a sound that is both familiar and refreshingly new.
When I'm in the studio, since I'm also producing most of the time, I get to, you know, experiment, and I get to vibe, and I get to, you know, write the lyrics, try to record some stuff in the booze, and that's the flow of it.
Whoa, alala, it go like Jambaru, Demaka, Jambaru, Demaka. Kainu maskarem sabat no, beru tasfa mitai besaat no, get areko masab kaban no, yani ingam kadem belen indalo.
Thank you, Jackson, for that. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.